I had probably squished too much of myself in the process of becoming a barber, and had probably got the controls a bit wrong in terms of like going from that full freebird art student to being a barber.
Yeah.
And the points where they clashed, I kind of squished myself a bit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Kyl Reber podcast. We are back in the gym if you're on YouTube, and this is a podcast that I'm sure you all know by now. We interview some very famous people that none of you have probably ever met. We visit people that have just gone to town on their arms with a Sharpie. That'll make sense soon. If you're listening only, that'll make sense. But people with very interesting stories, not limited to martial arts at all, and not limited to really anything. This person that I'm about to interview, I would say 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah, trying to think. Got her in here. When did I start my apprenticeship? 2013.
Okay. So we met by this guy cutting my hair, which he did yesterday. You can't really tell. I gotta. It's
Don't look.
No, don't look. Don't look now.
Lucky you're only listening.
But this guy is a very interesting fellow, and I've come to become good mates with this guy, and he has a lot of different stuff going on. So, Jack Rodgers, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Now we're RODGERS.
RODGERS.
How often have you had to correct that?
I just get it straight out of my head. Get the chemist or whatever. You know, you got to just spell it out to save the time.
Spell it out and done.
All the famous Rodgers don't have the D. So.
Oh, come on, come on! Don't be hard on
Would
yourself.
have loved to have been, Tim Rodgers or Matt Rodgers or something.
Someone else, Rodgers.
Not quite. Couldn't.
Well, I think you're famous in your own right. You're doing okay. You're doing okay. Now, for those who are new to this podcast, we do a series of questions. There's 10 questions. Jack got these questions about a week ago. They are not too thought-provoking. They give a little bit of insight into this person much beyond what we would initially think. And they enable us to go off on some very interesting tangents, which will no doubt happen again. Now, number one, which is always the longest one, but it's meant to be the shortest one. Birth to now in 7 minutes. 3, 2, 1. Go.
I got to say, 7 minutes feels ambitious. So I was born in Brisbane in 1990, and I went to school in Brisbane till grade 3, and then we moved to Cairns.
Whereabouts in Brisbane?
We were living on the north side. We were at Avid Park, and I actually went to like a super small, like Steiner school, little sort of hippie school in the bush. So there was 30 kids in the whole school.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Like insane to think of now, but it was really good. Like a really good way to get that early education for sure. So we left to move to Cairns in, I guess it was like 98 or something. So I started grade 4 in Cairns. And couldn't have gone from more
one extreme to another.
Exactly. Yeah. Cairns was great, but it wasn't a hippie Steiner school in the bush, that's for sure.
What prompted the move to Cairns?
Dad got a job. He is a rainforest ecologist. And so we moved up to Cairns, and then he was kind of based out of the uni, and then up to Cape Tribulation, working in the Daintree.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we sort of, we were based in Cairns in Trinity Beach, like in the Northern Beaches. And then we'd that was a great 4 years of just using that as a hub. And we went sort of everywhere from sort of Cooktown up to Corumba, and just did big laps of North Queensland, which was pretty special.
Yep.
It's a beautiful part of the world.
Where did you go then?
we came back to Brizzy when I started high school,
Where'd you go to high school?
Brisbane State High.
State High.
So another big shift then from.
For those who don't know, that is literally probably, well, at the time, it might have been the biggest high
I think
school
at the
in
time
Brisbane.
it was. I think some people have caught them maybe, but it's still, even now, it's like
It's a
over
massive
3,000
school.
kids now, and it was probably 2.5 when
Did
I
that
was.
mess with your head for a little bit?
Yeah, so I went from 700 kids in my school in Cairns to 700 in my grade.
Yeah.
So when I started grade 8, and it's like for people who don't know, like State High is on like 2 massive blocks.
Yeah.
Like even to go from class to class, you have to cross a road and go over a bridge and all this stuff. It's a massive. It's more like a uni size.
And they're very academic sort of minded, like what's the word I'll use? Performance-based school.
Yeah, definitely. You need to either like sit a test or get a scholarship to get in, sort of thing. And yeah, it's pretty like selective. It's funny when you're there too, because they have this kind of chip on their shoulder about, they're kind of like the GPS poor cousin, like they've competed in all the GPS stuff.
They're a state school,
Yep.
but
Yep.
they come under general private schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they sort of, and they compete at that level, absolutely.
There's
with
so
all that
many,
stuff.
so many Olympians and
Yeah.
everything have come out of State
I went
High.
to school with a couple of boomers and all the rest of it. It's crazy, yeah. But it's fun, I think, because it's obviously has that reputation. But then what also happens is, because it's so big, it's kind of almost more just like microcosm of the world, really.
Yeah.
Like it's not as there's not as much pressure as it feels like.
No. You can fly under the radar a bit.
Totally. And there was a lot of room for that, especially because especially once you get into senior school and stuff. And, this was a long time ago. I don't know what it's like now, but it was sort of like if you weren't playing rugby or, the Ducks of your class, they sort of weren't paying attention. So like we started, the music program was really good, but kind of flew under the radar. We had really good teachers who supported us through that stuff. So we all started bands and put on concerts at lunchtime. And then some people a couple of years above me started a thing called State High Rocks. That was like a big, almost like a school dance, except it was like a 12-band gig. And everyone would just go to that and socialize.
So music was your thing?
Yeah, it was. I'd sort of always drawn and painted and done visual stuff. But when I sort of went headlong into music, when most people do at sort of 15 or whatever, it went nuts. We just started lots of bands and got into it.
Was music something that, what would you call it, was a family institution?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Dad
parents
was a big
to music?
muso.
Played or listened?
Both. Like Dad played a lot of guitar at home. I don't think he had really got into bands and stuff when he was younger, but he was certainly one of those like 70s teenagers that had the long hair and the guitar and all the rest of it. And so definitely passed that on to me and my sister. And raiding his collection, like record collection and stuff, was sweet too, because it was all that like 70s blues inspired stuff. And
so what was the again, we're about to get off track here. What was the first record that you picked up and put on and you just went, this is fucking unreal?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be like, there's kind of two worlds, I suppose. Like, there's definitely like Dad. I remember definitely Dad had like Zeppelin 3. That was a big one. But also like on the more just straight blues side, like he had Taj Mahal and a few like, the blues thing was really big in our house.
Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
So high school's done.
Yeah.
What happened then?
Well, at the tail end of high school, it's funny, like talking about the music stuff, I didn't even study music at school. So a lot of the people, even that I still play in bands with today, are people I know from school playing music, and they were all doing music classes but I was 100% self-taught and probably couldn't really catch up if I stopped and did lessons in a way. Like I did guitar lessons like privately outside school, but I definitely never learned music.
So looking back, would you have been more into music? I don't want to use the word better. Would you have been better equipped at music if you had studied it, or you don't think that's ever been a disadvantage?
I don't think so. Like the stuff that
what can they do that you can't do? Or has it ever been a thing that's held you back?
It's more just the way musicians who have been trained like are able to communicate with each other. Like say when you're jamming or whatever, it's just beyond the muscle memory stuff. It seems to be like a brain thing as well.
Yeah.
But I guess I've always drifted towards more DIY music anyway, like punk stuff, and so a lot of my heroes weren't especially good musicians. They were good at all the other shit, but they weren't necessarily like.
I was going to say there is a high percentage of that but there is also probably a very high percentage of famous musicians that are self-taught.
100%. Yeah,
I think the entirety of U2 learnt as
they
went.
Totally.
You know?
Absolutely.
I think Larry Mullen said we need a drummer. You're playing drums. You know,
100%. Yeah, and I've been in a lot of bands like that, and it is really good to be on that level. But then I think there's also a hell of a lot of bands where in school I was a singer, just a frontman singer, and in a way, I think there's probably a model of band that's been like that for a long time as well, where the singer doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah,
but their band is so tight and knows their shit so well that it sort of doesn't matter. You know, they can sort of just look after you and you just get going, kind of thing. And there's heaps of times where that goes really fucking wrong because you don't even really know what went wrong.
So you finish high school.
Yeah. What I was going to say there is at the I can't remember if I was in grade 11 or 12, but there was a system called the guest program, which took visual arts students. So I didn't do music at school, but I did do fine art all the way through.
Yeah. Was uni on the cards or?
So if you did this thing in grade 11, you did one course at uni while you're in grade 11.
Right.
And on the strength of that, if you passed that course, then you got automatic entry into the fine art degree at Griffith.
Right.
So I went, I don't even know what it was, 2 days a week or something through grade 11 and 12 and did this course. I did a printmaking course at QCA and absolutely loved it. And I passed. I really enjoyed it. And it also meant that I think it must have been grade 11 because then by the time I got like halfway through grade 12, I was so fucking smug. Like I was like, I'm in. I don't give a shit. I don't have to do anything. So I still did my OP and everything. But at the time, the uni was shifting as well. So they weren't just taking people on portfolio. They'd shifted to an OP intake.
Yeah.
And the OP was kind of needlessly low. Like it was like a 6 or something. So it's like, I definitely wouldn't have got in. So I was really lucky, but it meant that I was kind of home and hosed. So I just started uni the year after that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Griffith at Nathan.
This one's at South Bank. Across the road from what's the big fancy hotel there? Emporium.
Emporium, yeah.
Yeah.
So
next to the ship in.
There's them.
It's sort of in.
For those who don't live in Brisbane, we're going through all these markers. So yeah, Ship In is a pub in South Brisbane that I guess being a uni student and using a pub as a marker can only mean one thing.
It was sort of because it's quite a small campus there.
Yeah.
So it sort of was our uni bar, and they looked after us really well. Like we kind of had uni specials and stuff like that. It was pretty good.
So you finished the degree?
Yes. Yep. So I took my time. It was a 3-year degree, and I think it was probably more like 4.5 for me. I just kind of, I there's sort of no incentive to finish. Really. There's no, like, they don't sort of shake your hand at the end and go, congratulations, like, come into the art office and now you're working as an artist. So,
Pardon my ignorance, but how do you like, because art is so subjective, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work out, how do you get marked on your art?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, a really hard thing
like,
to
I mean,
quantify.
my ignorance, I look at some art and go, that is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
for
people
sure.
go, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
5-year-old could paint that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, that's my work specifically. I think it's one of those things with, it is really hard to quantify and to mark, and it's sort of like a regular process of critique the whole way through uni. And in a way, it's got less to do with how good the work is and more to do with the critique process and understanding sort of the critical thinking around it. And it's not, because obviously art and the arts are very like emotional and personal, and but part of turning that raw gold into a career is sort of being able to step back from that and turn it from something that just happens and you don't know why, turn that into a process and understanding kind of how that happened and how you can do it again. So that critique process, it was hard to see some people. I mean, and you know, everyone has shit critiques. I had some shockers as well, but there is always going to be that couple of people that just don't quite get it, and their stuff's always a bit off, and they kind of can't quite defend it in a way that needs to be defended.
Yeah.
In terms of like whether or not art looks like art, like
what is art?
Sort of doesn't matter really. By the time you finish,
it's whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interpretation.
Yeah.
What so uni finishes now.
Yeah, where are we there? That's probably like 2012 maybe.
Yeah.
12,
so when do you start doing the haircut?
Yeah, so that
so how does that, so you're playing in the bands whilst at uni?
Yeah, so uni was like kind of a new bag of bands. What's high school bands kind of wrapped up.
Now what's your go-to style that you're kind of forming?
Well, we did a few, like, so it's funny, the uni, the high school stuff, like I started gigging in pubs when we were about 16.
Yeah, right.
But we were also like, it was like full blown like Aussie cock rock kind of. Like it was like I thought I was like Tex Perkins or something. I was like, you know, 60 kilos ringing wet and like, yeah, it was.
You can only imagine.
Yeah, it's
this
pretty
fucking beanpole.
Yeah, and so people we were sort of like, oh,
painted on
jeans. This. Yeah, the adults are loving it, but then they were sort of, you could. In retrospect, you're like, they would have thought we were so cute. Like, they should have been like stoked to have us because yeah, like a little mascot. So that's funny, but and then through uni, I did a lot of like classic kind of art school bands, like more kind of grunge kind of stuff. I started drumming, so I drummed for a band called Pink Services for a long time. We were really good, had a lot of fun, and then I did a whole bunch of country stuff. A lot of old country, and started kind of on my own singer-songwriter thing, and then built a band around that called Big Iron, and we played a shitload.
I think that's when I first.
That was like, sort of just before barbering and then into barbering.
So yeah, you were gigging. Yeah. Because I said to Lila, I think he's gone all rockabilly country.
That was the vibe. Yeah, for sure. And it was so big then too. Like rockabilly. I think ran out of puff because it's really just like, it's pretty like shallow really. But that scene was so big, whatever that was, 15 years ago, that was massive.
Was there ever a time where you thought we might take this on the road, or was it only ever just fun?
I think really early on, that was probably the ambition, but the further along I got, like say Pink Services, when I was drumming, that was like, because we were all like arty, it was super like deliberately non-commercial.
Yeah.
And we were looking for opportunities, but much more like through like that Triple Z lens and keep like doing lots of community stuff. So we were less interested in getting picked up necessarily or whatever.
It's just for the jam.
Yeah, and then that kind of informed Big Iron. By the time that was probably, we were really busy and lots of bands wanted to play with us, and we played at a lot of venues. But I don't know, it was hard. Big Iron was kind of, because it was much more formed around me. Like I kind of started writing the music, and I kind of picked who was going to play. It really was much more like drinking buddies, and like we're only doing shit when it sounds fun, and you know, like we certainly weren't like,
it was never,
you know, some bands take it crazy serious. You get paid $200 a gig, everyone pools everything. You know, like pay for everything here and there, like that. They would pay us the $200 and we just put it straight back on the and just get rid of it as sooner the better, you know. And
easy come, easy go.
And it meant that, yeah, I just saw lots of other mates get close and not get there, or even get there, but just like, it's a totally different ambition.
Yeah.
You know, and it changes. I was probably more serious than like a hobbyist. We were still making all our own music. It wasn't like a cover band or anything like that. But I don't think, personally for me, my ambition was not to like necessarily like, oh, we've got to get ourselves in front of the right guy, whatever. It was just, we'll work it out. Yeah.
So when do you start the snippy snip? What prompts that?
Well, so I had all the way through high school and uni, I'd worked at Coles. And once I finished uni, that was like one of those moments where people finish uni and leave Coles. You know, they're like, oh, I'm a lawyer now, or I'm a physio or whatever.
I increased my hours.
I was like, oh, I've got time now. Like, I'll do full time for a bit. Yeah. So it lasted about a year of doing that. And there was aspects of it that I did really enjoy, but it was, I just knew like I didn't want to be buried in my Coles uniform sort of thing. And I was like, art isn't going to, if it's ever art that's going to pay the bills, it's not going to be now, and it won't be for a decade. So I need to find something that's going to sort of work for me in the meantime. And I was kind of, there was a barbershop across from the Coles I was working at. They looked like they were having more fun than me. I kept running into them at the pub and stuff, and eventually I just hit them up for an apprenticeship. And that they had a shitload of shops around. It wasn't anywhere near as big as now, but there was probably half a dozen shops at the time. So I had seen the Cool Dude shop where I was, and they're like, no worries, you're going to Oxley. I was like, okay, cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so that was another big kind of handbrake turn in terms of like, it was almost like the Steiner to state school thing. Like it was from full blown, like art school's fucking nuts, man. Like drinking, drugs, like most of our lectures were done at the pub.
I wouldn't, like this is the thing. Like I would just imagine, again, quite ignorant probably, but just art school is like what do you do? Like what do you study? Like
well, I mean, it's so much more, you know, say like if you study, I think it's easy for like all non-artist civilians. It's easy for civilians to think, you know, like, oh, you must just learn how to draw the human figure or whatever. And that is one aspect of it, the technical skill, but most people come to college with 3/4 of that.
They've already got some ability anyway.
And if even if it's not, like your goal as an artist may not be perfection, but if you're making the work you want to make, you just need to, for me, art school was much more about getting to know myself, understanding conceptual art, understanding how to talk about your art, how to write about your art.
Well, I would imagine that, like, look, in contrast, say if you went to study law, you would go start your law degree pretty much not knowing maybe anything.
Exactly, yeah.
But you go to an art degree, you've already got some sort of form. Like you
got it. Well, yeah, I mean,
you don't rock up with a picture of a fucking stick man and go,
fix me.
How's this?
Yeah, I think it's funny too, because you end up in you really find your crew in that sense as well. It's literally like there was whatever, say 100 in the year I started, and it's literally like a bunch of 17-year-olds all going, oh fuck, finally, like
Yeah, I found my
there was
tribe.
only like 2 of me in my school, and now it's a whole room of the same kind of person that thinks and feels the same.
So you start the apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Are you doing a little bit of painting stuff or something just to pass the time?
Yeah, a little bit, probably more music. So we kept playing heaps of music. I certainly wasn't trying to go back on anything that I had done in the past, but I was conscious of, I think what comes with the freedom of art school is there's almost like this rose-tinted privilege of how fucking awesome and cruisy that is. And it's essential, but it's not what real life was.
That's what I mean. Like it would have been very deceiving. Like, like the essence of deadlines and
totally.
bills and, like fucking responsibility.
Yeah. And so, I mean, everyone, in some ways it's just uni, like everyone still has their life going on, but you kind of come out of that. I came out of it and looked around, and my close mates are all super sharp, but there's just a lot of that kind of art school vibe that's like, I was just like, this didn't fucking work out my real life.
This is not sustainable.
Get punched in the head somewhere along the line if I act like that kind of thing. So that was when I just I knew I was interested, just basically through those people I'd met. I knew that barbering looked interesting. I knew it was an apprenticeship. Apprenticeship's so different to uni in that, like, even though they don't pay a lot, like, to get paid to go instead of paying to go, that to me was a no-brainer. Like, to take it was even a pay cut from Coles, obviously, but to take that and be like, yeah, okay, I'll take that hit. I'd been pretty used to being poor from being an art student, so it wasn't a huge jump. You know what I mean?
This is fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'll do another 3 years eating rice and tuna or whatever. We'll just make it work.
So you finished the apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And then you keep going with that.
Yeah. So I must have been sort of the first 4 years at Oxley, where I met you. And then I went and worked for a friend on the north side, and I did, how long? It might have been 2 or 3 years there. And in between there, actually, I did start a tattooing apprenticeship. So that was the plan was I had finished my apprenticeship, and my cousin, who's a tattooer, had an opportunity to teach me to tattoo. And it's always been, people just assume I am a tattooer. Like, I mean, I'm heavily tattooed. I'm an artist. It makes sense, but I don't know yet. So it was kind of like, oh, sweet. That's always been something vaguely on the back burner. Pays a lot better than barbering. Fuck it. If we've got the opportunity, let's do it. And I went and I sort of juggled the tail end of barbering in Oxley and tattooing. And then the shop that I was tattooing at closed, and everyone just had to kind of scurry and get a job. And my cousin couldn't bring an apprentice with him, so he just had to kind of find his thing. And I was like, for the first time, of many times, I was lucky I had a trade. I was like, oh, sick. Okay, cool. I'll just whatever. And then at that point, I was tattooing on the north side. And so I thought, fuck it, my mate's at Aspley, I'll just go and work there.
Because especially in the last 15 years, barbering has become cool.
Oh, yeah, in a big way, yeah.
Like I remember my dad going to a barber in my hometown, and it was almost like, well, it was men only, and it was quite, for want of a better word, a little bit seedy.
Yeah,
it was
definitely
this old fella.
Yeah,
like to be under 60 and be a barber.
Yeah,
and they smoke and talk, solve the problems of the world.
Yeah.
Did you find that when you started this, like, because again, you good at holding a conversation?
Yeah.
Did you find like this is me? I like this. Or was it something that you thought, this is not what I thought I could do, but I can do this?
It's sort of a little bit of everything, like, in a weird way, I'm like a very blokey artist, but like a very like silky barber. So it's kind of like, I was kind of like, oh, fuck it, I'll go be a barber. And then I was like, oh man, I'm actually an art school kid, because it is like hyper masculine, and to be fair, it had cleaned up a lot. Barbering was already cool when I got there. I'll put my hands up and say there's people I've worked with who are older than me who really did the time when it wasn't cool. And they were like, this is cool, this will be cool, this is the shit I like, and I'm going to make it cool. And they did, and it's
it's an event now, as you know, like
totally,
you go there on a Friday, you get a beer, this,
exactly.
you've got your go-tos, like,
Yeah.
Was there ever a thought where you wanted to step into hairdressing land, or that did not even cross your mind?
It was certainly like a dirty word when I was doing my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
There's been times, like, maybe not lately, I'm happy where I am now, but even like a couple of years ago, it started to relax in terms of like women getting haircuts at barbershops and stuff like that. And that's much more acceptable.
You do cut women's hair? Like, what's the ratio, do you reckon?
I say, well, it's be crazy small.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy small.
But it's not uncommon anymore.
No. The main thing is like, I just kind of say, if a woman asks if they can get a haircut, I just make it pretty clear that I'm good at short haircuts. Like, they need to be into that. Like, you kind of can't make it fit. You can't be like, oh, okay, now
I'm not doing boils or
whatever. Exactly. I can't. It's just literally, you wouldn't want to trust me. I've literally never learned how to do it. So that was the other interesting. As my apprenticeship finished, they switched it from, it was hairdressing, like a hairdressing cert, and then it became two separate ones for barbering. So technically I am barber, which meant I didn't have to do any of that other stuff.
Yeah, right.
But heaps of guys before me technically did it. I don't know whether they could do a perm or whatever, but they learned how to do it. But I never learned any of those skills.
One gentleman we know mutually, Dicko.
He's a proper rock and roll hairdresser.
Now he can, like, I can't remember the numbers, but he would tell me these ridiculous numbers that he could get through, like in a day or in a week.
Yeah.
You would really get a fine, you get it down to a fine art, would you? Or
100%.
Or are you a guy that, like, not you're not rushing it, but like the thing that I've always thought of with barbers, you're cutting my hair, but then you know that there's 2 or 3 guys waiting behind you.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, I need to hurry up.
Yeah. I don't think
do you not
like
let that get to you?
No, I would say when I started, I was certainly like from the school of Dicko, absolutely. Like, that was sort of like, we often measure it like how many in an hour you do. So nowadays, like, a shop would expect you to do 4 an hour. Dicko and I were doing like consistently 6 an hour. Wow. He could do an 8 minute haircut.
Because that shop at Oxley, that would.
And it comes down to what, like, how busy it is, and the what the community expects of you. You go to some shops, they'd be outraged if you didn't take half an hour. And you go to some shops, I
want to be in and out.
You take like 9 minutes, and they're like, fuck, come on, dude, like, I missed my train. So you have to, the shop I was in at the time, that was 100% expected. And if you weren't hitting that, you weren't really like doing your bit.
Was it competitive?
Fuck yeah.
Like, if you didn't match up, there was like a show cause.
And I was proving shit too. Like, I was an apprentice. And I was really keen to learn. Super impressionable. I really wanted Dicko to like me, all that stuff. So I got up real quick. It was also made pretty clear to me at the start, like, the sooner you can cut hair and are useful to us, you don't have to clean. And I couldn't clean to save my fucking life. So I was like, all right, let's do this. I can do this. And then the penny dropped like almost instantly.
That makes sense.
Yes. But now I'm sort of happy to say now it's mellowed right out. Like, I enjoy doing sort of 3 an hour. it's a quieter shop. It's a
Mm.
different clientele. And it's, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have described that time. I wouldn't have said I was like anxious or stressed about the speed of the haircut, but I'm fucking way calmer now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's would be connected for sure, but it's like allowing yourself to, and probably being honest about the quality. Like if people want 8-minute haircuts, that's fine, but you can't do what you can do in 20 minutes. It's just not.
No.
So even if what the person needs is eye contact,
Mm.
like even if it's not about the haircut,
Mm.
they want to, you know, like little things that, just those little finesses that are actually, I think probably now that I've been doing it, whatever it is, like over 10 years, like now I know what style of barber I want to be. I've
Mm.
kind of worked with enough different people and
Yeah.
seen enough stuff that I've got a better idea of what I'm going to do. Yeah.
There was always that thing, that saying, you know, if you wanted to know anything that was happening in the town, just go see the publican.
Oh, absolutely.
Barber's the
Barber
same.
for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because you would, like, as any barber, I mean, myself being one of them, you would have some really regular people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
How
people,
often, what's the most regular someone will come in? Like, do you have like a weekly guy?
it was pretty common back in the day. Nowadays, I'd say styles have changed slightly and money's tighter for a lot of people.
Mm.
But yeah, you get weeklies for sure, 10 days, that sort of thing. It's always real estate agents and stuff, you know. Like they want to look sharp, they'll go in. They'll kind of have a bit of their own ritual, you know. They'll come on a Friday arvo because Saturday's going to be big and they want to look fresh and stuff, and it'll be kind of, it'll run onto car salesmen and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So present day, cutting hair.
Yeah.
Painting.
Painting.
Now we're doing some exhibits now.
Yeah. Yep. So that's, how far back do we go to do that? We did, I sort of, when I,
Was that a real shock when you went, I can actually make money out of this?
yeah, yeah, it was, and I'm kind of still learning it, to be honest.
As we know, some famous artists have died destitute, and
Oh,
then
fuck yeah.
and then
Yeah.
30 years after they're dead,
Yeah.
their paintings are worth
Yeah.
millions.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think I sort of, if we go back to sort of Aspley, my first daughter was born in April 2019, and that was a big, I mean, obviously it was a big moment.
Yep.
It's been known to be for most
more
people.
ways than one.
It's probably not doing it right if you do like a big moment.
Yeah, if you blow it off, we didn't need to talk.
But that was a big one for me where I think it's pretty natural for that to become a pretty big priority shift. Not just about prioritizing Olive and my wife Jess, but also kind of being a bit more aware of like who I actually wanted to be. And like I'd sort of foregone a lot of the art stuff to focus on barbering, and it had kind of worn away a little bit of who I actually was. And yeah, I was pretty keen to change that. And yeah, becoming a dad probably inspired a part of that.
So the barbering was it's a means to an end.
Yeah.
Whereas the painting or the art, that's something, no, do we get philosophical and say that's the legacy?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was a bit like that. And it was also like, I'd kind of held off on that part of myself. Like probably I would say not necessarily in a bad way. Like I had to put that time and energy into becoming a barber. Like I couldn't just fake that. I had to really put my head down and do that. But it meant that I basically hadn't made or shown art for probably maybe close to 10 years.
Yeah, right.
There'd been sort of like little dribs and drabs, like tiny little projects in between. But having that group of peers from art school go on to do other art stuff, still catching up with them regularly, and then that sort of coming around to like, oh, what are you doing? It's kind of nothing. You know, it's like kind of on the back burner. It also means that those opportunities don't come if you're not in those waters, you know, if you're not sort of progressing with that stuff, and you're not going to get the call up. So that kind of became So if Olive was born in April, I quit my job in November, and Jess and I swapped. So she was.
I remember this.
Yeah. So I left, and it was. I mean, we all know now, like that was incredibly good timing. Because I would have. I don't know if I necessarily would have lost my job in 2020, but I wouldn't have been doing a shitload of work.
You would have lost work.
Sure. Yeah,
some
exactly.
way,
I would have lost a lot of money.
So during COVID, you were the stay-at-home dad?
I was a stay-at-home dad, and Jess was working in medical stuff, so she was essential and working the whole time. And so, yeah, I just kind of set to work on rebuilding myself, really, and doing the shit that I thought was really important and trying to shake off. I got a lot of great stuff out of barbering, a lot of really good friends, and a really useful portable skill. But trying to shake off some of the kind of like, it's almost too strong a word, but that sort of toxic masculinity, stoic kind of shit that I'm just like, it's actually not me. Like I'd prefer be myself and be a barber than pretend to be this kind of person.
Like you said, it's always something that you can fall back on.
Exactly.
But you got to chase the dream.
Yeah. And so it sort of helped me, having that spare time helped me kind of rebuild that and get back into painting. And you also, especially like with that much time off, you kind of have to do a lot of shit paintings like go again, you know what I mean?
I remember a conversation we had a little while ago where you were talking about you were putting together paintings for an exhibit. Like, God, we could do a podcast just on this.
Yeah, true.
But
okay, press play.
Yeah.
This is actually good.
Told you, we're only on question 1.
Yeah, true. Shit, I never thought that.
But you, like, there's got to be, like, you know, okay, getting the money from a painting is great. But I would imagine, and I mean, probably the same as martial arts, if you're doing this only for the money, get out now. For you, if you're painting and like you're going, I need to get these ready for an exhibit, there must be this real process that if you rush it, you've got the chance of fucking it.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And like you said, I think when we were talking about it, you said, oh, you know, I'll go downstairs and just in the middle of the night or whatever, and just go, fuck, I've got this thing, like, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's sort of, and it is really hard for like commercial artists and professional artists to balance that, because there is like a kind of mythology around art and creativity that it's sort of just like this magical thing, but you do need to train yourself to kind of do it anyway. And if you got no ideas, do it anyway, that kind of thing, so that you're slowly building it. And I think like the structure of being a dad really helped, especially like being a stay-at-home dad, where it was all the routines were on me. It meant that like you can break a painting down into like a bunch of 10-minute jobs.
Yeah.
You know, like you run down, you prime it, you run back up, whatever, have a play, she has a nap, run down, whatever, glue some shit to the back of it, whatever, do a painting, that didn't work. You know, like having that process where you kind of break everything down and it's much more methodical. Yeah, that sort of really helps.
How long does the average painting take to do? If that's even possible.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
Possible, like.
Yeah, I mean, like, it sort of depends, because some of the processes that I use.
It's just artistic.
Yeah. So we met at art school.
Because I was going to say, like,
we're gonna need to edit this.
Oh, no,
I didn't even mention that. Yeah.
No, because I was going to say, like, Jess comes home from work, and she says, "What have you done today?" And I've done half a painting or whatever.
Yeah.
I've primed something. She goes, and.
Where's Olive? Yeah.
Is that it? Okay. Is that
it? Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it has become a strange quirk of the way that our family works as well. Like I still haven't really. I worked full-time briefly when I started back working at this Indro shop, and our second daughter Dorothy was born. I worked full-time briefly, but then when Jess went back to work, now we both work 3 days a week. And it's kind of, yeah, like there's days where it's like, wait, why am I at home and the kids at daycare and the kids at school?
Yeah. So
It's
what
like-
did you do today? I made toast.
Yeah, totally. And there's times when you've got like I had 2 solo shows in the first half of this year, which was fucking dumb.
Just because of the pressure of it.
Yeah, just the man hours that it takes to like, to answer your question, like the works come together quickly, but there's so many little 10-minute jobs that it's actually fucking heaps of work.
How many paintings are in a show?
I mean, it all comes down to the space, but I did I think 14 for the show I had at Gabba, and probably roughly the same. I probably sent 15 to Sydney in February. And they all just take however long they take kind of thing. But it is much more methodical now. I'm not sort of waiting for it to strike,
Yeah.
There's a lot of prep that goes in, so it is time consuming, but it's much more methodical. Yeah.
Yeah, good. We should probably get on to question 2.
True. Yeah. Far out. True.
All right. Number 2. 3 reasons you get out of bed every morning.
Now, I said Jess and Olive and Dorothy, which is a very sweet thing to say, but it's also mostly because the bed's full by the time I get up. So we sort of start our days about sort of 5:30 or 6.
Yep.
And but yeah, I mean, even metaphorically, like that's who I'm working for sure. And in a really, not even in a macho way, like we all do in our family, and we all do what we can for each other. And so yeah, that's what gets us going, I think.
My brother often said, like, because I have 2 daughters as well, and he said this is what we call karma.
For sure.
Have you ever wondered what the contrast would have been if you had boys or a son and a daughter?
Yeah.
Or would there have been
I
a
have thought
contrast?
about that. I'm not sure. Like Jess was really nervous that we were going to have boys. She's like she's got 4 sisters.
Yeah, right.
And a younger brother. And I guess she was just kind of like, I wouldn't know what to do with him. I was like, you work it out. But I think, I don't know. I think the way that we've raised the girls so far, it's been as kind of gender neutral as it possibly could. And so it's hard for me to imagine. There is times now and then where you go to a barbecue and you see boys the same age as Olive, like, beating the shit out of each other, and you're like, oh, okay, well, it is different. That's cool. Like, I'm not acting like it's all the same, but
no, this is where I am.
Jumping off shit and whatever. It's like, Olive is really like very active like that, but still in the way that a girl would be.
She's still a girl.
Yeah.
I think this is where I obviously with what I do and having 2 daughters, I get asked all the time, are you disappointed that you don't have daughters or have sons? And I'm like, you fucking met my daughters, it's, and again, they choose to do that.
Yeah.
But it's it's interesting, like you said about Jess and having boys. I think we had a big expectation that we didn't check first, but we had this belief that Ivy was going to be a boy.
Okay, yeah, right.
And then when Ivy's born,
that's interesting.
Out she comes.
Yeah.
And Helen goes, "Oh, Kyle, it's another girl." I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
There was not one bit of like, oh, I would have liked a boy.
I'm sure you're the same. Like, I often think almost what proves the whole thing to be bullshit is like how different your daughters are. My daughters are so different from each other.
Man,
the idea that like
100%.
one would be different because they are a boy or whatever, it's like, I don't know. It's just, and there's also like, as I said, we did everything we could to sort of keep everything very neutral. And really what ended up, like there was a pinkification when she turned 3 or whatever at daycare.
Yeah.
That it was all over.
Yeah.
She was going to be a girly girl anyway.
It's just that thing, isn't it? That's going to go forever. It's just this thing, isn't it? That I've never once just even, and again, I don't know why any parent would do it, but I've never once looked at either of my daughters and gone, God, I wish you were a boy.
No, God, no. I couldn't imagine it. I think it's more just like, I think more in terms of like their future as a woman and how different that was as when I was a young man and what that's gonna mean for them, but certainly not in a negative way or that,
No, like I said, I think we have probably very similar parenting styles.
Yeah.
Especially judging by your Instagram stories. Have you got a 2 and a 3?
2 and a 3. I sort of had them as all 3.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it kind of for individual reasons. I think I kind of understand the crux of the question, but I don't really necessarily think in those terms for motivation. Like,
it's interesting because so many people that I've done this podcast with, there's at least one question that they'll interpret just a little bit differently. Like it's like, one of them was guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
And one of the people I interviewed said, I don't have a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
If I want to fucking eat cake,
Yeah.
I eat cake.
Yeah.
I don't get
that.
worked up about anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, I do appreciate the people who think about motivation in a very like kind of almost like an objects driven kind of like what makes you get out of bed. But that's I'm honestly just really lucky to be like quite an optimistic person. I've had dark times, but overall, like I'm a glass half full guy. It isn't hard to get out of bed apart from like physically, but like mentally, I'm not like a dark stay in bed kind of person. So I don't need that carrot and stick kind of mentality to be just like, how am I gonna, what's the little thing that drives me? It's for me, it's family, and that's, I don't know. Yeah. There's other, I think that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, excellent.
And it's, as I say, I know that I'm incredibly lucky to be like that. There's a lot of people who
aren't.
And you don't even have to be depressed to not be like that. Like you can just see your demeanor.
It's just how it's how you see the world.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, number 3. While we're on that, 2 guilty pleasures that you have.
Well, yeah, I was going to say I thought of it really differently as well, because I feel like almost all my pleasures are guilty. I'm like the opposite of your other guy. Like I've got zero impulse control. I'm like a cornerstone addict. Like I'm just addicted to everything. I don't smoke anymore, but I smoked for like a really long time.
What was the catalyst to quitting?
Health for sure. Like
did you have a scare, or you just went, this is no fucking...
I got pneumonia at one point, and that was pretty fucked. And I had a lot of like failed attempts, and it's like all that classic stuff, like doing it for the wrong reasons, doing it for someone else, all that stuff. It's never going to really work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, getting it to a place where I had control and wanted to do it and wanted it to be my call. That's what worked for me in the end.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I still drink too much, but way less than I used to. So I'm sort of happy enough with that.
It's open to interpretation.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone's got a different number.
It's all your definition.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of like the guilty pleasures, what I actually wrote down was 4x off the wood at the Brecky Creek.
Oh.
And a cheeky game of Keno. Basically, anytime I'm in a surf club, I've got to do.
You just got to do it.
Yeah, can't not.
Have you ever had a decent win?
The most I was in a show in an exhibition in Rockhampton 2 years ago with some mates. We did a big road trip up there, and on opening night we went to the Criterion after. And I think I won like $300 or $400 or something. Like that. I was pretty happy with that.
Put it straight on the bar.
Yeah, absolutely. Came back with like 3 bottles of wine and shit. Yeah, it was all gone straight away. But it's yeah, that's part of the course. It's part of it. Yeah,
it seems to be.
But as I said, it is that kind of guilt and shame as an addict is sort of like it is a real barrier for me all the time. Like, yeah, you piece of shit, you're gonna eat all those lollies every time. So yeah, it's funny. Like, I wish I was like your mate. It'd be incredible. Like, I'm eating cake. Yeah,
it's funny, isn't it? Number 4. One thing you bought that has literally made you happy every day after.
I would say not much. Like, I'm definitely more of an experience.
Are you a stuff guy?
Not really. I've got a lot of stuff. I think that's kind of life in 2024, but I'm not, it doesn't float my boat. But what I came to was, and I guess it's the only way I could see answering the question was Jess's engagement ring. So we were on holidays in Tassie, and we'd just done a week in Melbourne, and I was a second-year apprentice. And so we were in Tassie for a week, and we were at Mona, and I was like, "Oh, this would be a good place to get engaged." And we'd been together since we were 19, and I'd basically been asking her to marry me like since we were 20. Like, just we're like, "Oh, it's a nice day." And she was just like, "Jack, we're fucking kids." Like, no, we joke as well. Like, we've been together now nearly 15 years, and she says, like, if I had my way, we'd have like a 13-year-old. Like, I was really keen to settle down and do all the boring stuff, and she was too, but she was like, "Dude, we're kids. Like, you need to fucking."
Why do you think? Do you look back and wonder why that was?
I think, I mean, it's corny as hell, but I just knew I'd found the one.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, and in that sense, like, I was more than happy to wait for an appropriate time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just was like, man,
I'm happy.
I'm done looking for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think I wasn't looking for something that I hadn't experienced. Like, I wasn't like coming from a broken home or looking for that security or anything like that people talk about. But I just knew I loved her, really. And so then she kind of called my bluff, because it was like, it had become this thing that I'd just, like, after a good meal, I'd be like, "Oh, will you marry me?" And so, like, we're walking, she's like, "Shut the fuck up." And so,
so if she said no all those times and you went to Mona, for those who don't know, Mona is what would you call it? An independent art gallery in Tasmania.
Yeah. What did we say before? Perverse lounge room.
Yeah. Yeah. What, were you shocked when sorry, did you just say yes? Or like, had it been work, or were you wearing her down?
Maybe.
Fuck, if I say yes, will you just stop asking?
That's right. Yeah, give it a rest. Yeah, maybe. But I think it was she was kind of like, "Yeah, I can see it. Makes good sense." But then
this seems fair.
Totally. Yeah. But then I was a second-year apprentice at the end of a 2-week holiday. Like, I didn't have any money.
Yep.
I didn't have a ring. Like, because we came back to Brisbane and people were like, "You sly dog, you didn't tell anyone." I was like, I didn't think about it. Like, it wasn't like a ruse. Like, the holiday wasn't a ruse to get engaged.
No, I did something very similar.
Yeah. And so we went to Pandora and bought like a $50 ring.
Yep.
And it's still the best investment I've ever made in my entire life.
That's awesome.
And then it was so funny, it was so clunky. Like, I sort of proposed, but it was much more of like a meeting. Like, I was kind of like, "Hey, we should get engaged." She was like, "Okay, you have to propose to me." I was like, "Oh, fuck, okay."
Oh, yeah.
So then we went ring shopping.
Did you do the whole down on one knee shit?
Yeah, she made me in Salamanca. It was fun. And I had to ring her old man.
Oh, I had to do the blessing.
But he was stoked. He was really happy for us, so it wasn't scary. Like, I'd known him. As I said, we've been together. Like, I'm 34 now. We've been together since I was 19.
Yeah.
So I really grew up with that family, with my in-laws, and I'm really grateful to have them in my life. So that wasn't a daunting thing at all. That was a really exciting thing to basically tell him. I wasn't asking, really.
He's probably like, "Fuck."
Yeah. Except we were crazy young, especially for our generation. Like, we got I was 26 when we got married.
So was
So
I.
I would have been 24 or something when we got engaged.
Yeah, I was, yeah, we were both 26.
Which is, I mean, we were more than ready, but yeah, people.
It's funny,
thought it
it's
was
funny
really
how
young.
that's young. Like, God, my brother he was, my sister-in-law, I think was 18.
Yeah,
19 when
that's
she got
pretty
married.
niche, isn't it?
You know, like that just doesn't happen anymore.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I think the most common scenario seems to sort of be like, it's like a game of musical chairs and it ends when you're 30, you know, and people kind of go, oh, fuck, okay, been with you for long enough.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, like sounds like a bit preachy or something, but I kind of really do think marriage isn't for everyone. Like I'd sooner see way less people get married.
One of my oldest
It
mates.
shouldn't be that common, I don't
No,
think.
one of my oldest mates, he started dating this girl, I think a week or two before Helen and I started dating. They are still together.
Yeah.
They have a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Never got married.
Yeah.
Just wasn't on the radar.
Yeah.
You know,
And then you get people get married and they don't fucking like each other.
within months.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Or pack the kids in and then still don't. You kind of go like, oh, fuck, I just realised you're actually really annoying. Yeah.
Well, let's hope it stays that way.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. One thing everyone thought you were crazy doing, but did it anyway, and it paid off.
I think I put being an artist, which makes sense. Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily like paid off, and it is like a hard thing to quantify. It's paid off like emotionally.
Not to jump into your bank statements, but is it something that you can see yourself? I don't even want to use making a living, but it's paying for itself.
It's paying for itself. So it's no longer a money pit hobby.
Which means at one point it was.
No, really lucky. It's just naturally scaled up. I've been really lucky, to be honest.
What about, is there people that, like you said, you had a lot of people in your group at uni, people that have just never like you would have had some people that have been quite successful.
Yeah.
And some that it just never went any further.
Yeah, can be. Yeah. And some people kind of walk away willingly. Like some people kind of go, they'll do art and then they'll go, kind of like I did, say, with barbering, but they'll do it within the art. So they'll go, I couldn't really give a shit if I'm a visual artist, like a specific artist, but you could be an art teacher, you could work in an art gallery, so lots of people kind of go, all right, well, what's the version of this that pays the bills?
Yeah.
Like, how can I support other artists and make a living, but I'm not under pressure to make art for money? It's funny, like I remember conversations even at uni where, lots of people kind of go, oh, I could never make art for money, that kind of, very kind of like, oh, I couldn't imagine it kind of thing. And I was like, fuck off.
I was just about to say,
but
I'm so glad you said that because I'm like, you would hear that stuff here.
Well,
I think fucking bullshit.
I think with a bit of
so if someone goes to give you a $10,000 check, not fucking show my age, $10,000 check for one of your paintings, you're going to go, oh no, I'm not doing it for that.
Yeah, but I think with a bit of maturity, I do realize like probably what they meant is more like, it'd be like, I'll give you 10 grand if it's a yellow one.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's really what you got to decide is like, who are you doing this for? And that's, I even now on such a small scale still have to keep coming back to that, like, because you can get, especially in a way, like early on, there's more small attention and small distractions early on where it's like, oh, this could be the thing. This could be the path. This could be the person I need to talk to. But it means those little bargains like, oh man, if you give me 3 red ones, I'll be able to do this thing and then you can whatever.
So when you do an exhibit, I don't know, again, I'm pleading ignorance. You do an exhibit with 14 paintings, you're not expecting to sell them all, or is there a thing that you're hoping that you can be, like, do you offload a few, or like what's a good exhibit and what's a...
Yeah, I mean, there was a time, it's all I think what I'm learning most now is like about price point, and I think my work.
That would be so hard. Like,
it's really hard.
what is that worth?
Yeah, and it's
You know?
that's kind of like the job of the gallery, I guess. Like once you start to work with galleries, they're a shop that sells paintings, and they know about selling paintings. That's kind of what they do. You make paintings, and they know how to sell them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what that relationship is, or what it should be if it's working. So in some ways, some of their advice is, man, if you do 3 yellow ones, and you as the artist need to decide, like, there's kind of a bargain there to be made where you're like, oh,
and that's the trade-off, isn't it?
okay, you're selling out if you do 3 yellow ones.
Am I selling out, or am I putting money on the table?
Yeah,
am I
totally.
putting food on the table?
Totally. And that's, I've had moments like that, even with commissions in general. Like some artists would never do a commission. I hate doing them, but there's been times where I've needed the money basically. Yeah, fuck it, I'll do that. That's all right. Let's do that. But yeah, they are hard to do because you're no longer dealing with your creative practice and your intuition. You're having to deal with another person's complete baggage around what they think it should look like,
and they know every.
Well, you're against like an image in their head that's totally imaginary.
Yeah,
and it's not always that person's fault either, but it's just like it's actually like an impossible deal to make if they haven't kind of lowered the bar to be like, oh, well, I can't wait to see what happens. Then you're fucked.
I love that. I forget what the actual name of the series is, but I love the that series where Ando.
Oh yeah, what a classic.
And he doesn't show them.
Yeah.
Until after, and you just wonder sometimes. Do you see like when he flips it around and like do they cut the scene where they go, what the fuck is that?
And there are some. I think it's a funny, like as an artist, I really like the format of that show, and no shade on Ando, but like some of them are lemons.
Oh, like you just look and go.
But it's also just because
he's painting with a trap.
I think that's what I mean as well. It's like it's a bit like the commission thing where it's like you're doomed from the start, dude. Like you've told the ABC you can fucking paint anyone in an hour. Like no, you can't. No one can. It's kind of set yourself up.
You're on the back foot there, mate.
Totally.
All right, number 6. 4 things you cannot live without: animate or inanimate.
I said, friends and family. I'm going to categorize them together as one because I mean my friends are family. Food, music, and art. And I think they're kind of the 4 main drivers in my life, and they're the things that I really need. Yeah.
If I wanted to get on Jack's good side and give him a meal that will just mean we're instantly best friends, what am I putting in front of you?
I'd probably say that you would let me cook for you.
Oh,
like I love cooking for people, and it comes like food and friends and family are
what's
one.
Jack
really.
known for then?
I've been really hooked on seafood lately.
Okay.
So heaps of pippies, heaps of baby octopus.
Yeah, right.
Heaps of like those little butterfly whiting fillets and stuff like that. Yeah, love that. Bit
So
of white wine.
The kids, this is one thing, again, similar parenting styles. Our kids have always had very interesting tastes in food.
Yeah.
Mostly, well, I will say mostly Helen more than me. Because I came from a meat and 3 veg family.
Yeah, so did I, to be honest. To be really honest,
I always say one of the best things that Helen ever gave me was she introduced me to sushi.
Yeah.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah, like God, our kids would eat fucking roll mops and pickles and that sort of shit. So your kids just same sort of thing.
Absolutely love it. Baby octopus is like their favorite.
That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, we're really like, and even when they were really little, like there couldn't be like their food and our cheese platter or whatever. It was like, and the full like stinking blue cheese, the whole thing. They love it all. So, which is kind of great. It just means you got to share. Like,
mate, I know of families that are cooking like 3 meals.
Oh yeah, and we're really lucky. We've just in the last like sort of Olive started school this year, and we shifted to like one family meal. And it's been awesome because they'd eat their dinner, and then they'd start trying to stay up to see what we were having. And so I just said, "Yep, sweet, you're on, absolutely. We'll all eat as a family, but you can't whinge about
what you put in front of you is what you eat."
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like, especially like we're not a meat and 3 veg family, so you can't say it's boring. You know, like it's something different every night. It's real crazy, interesting food. So you're not missing out.
And they will, like, this is one thing I love about my kids. I'm sure yours will be the same. They are now, like, we get, what's it called? Marley spoon.
Oh yeah, cool.
They cook the whole thing.
Yeah.
They're the ones who cook dinner.
Yeah, my girls will be the same for sure.
Know, like they were cooking meals.
Yeah,
like 6-7 years old.
Yeah. I think my only barrier to that is that like the kitchen is my
yeah.
So
the amount of fry pans of Helen's we have a family has destroyed.
Yeah. And so and it's like, yeah, well, like I love just getting in the zone and making like, 3 dishes at once and putting a little thing together and putting it all out. And you just can't do that. 3-year-old there. So it's I really flash forward and love the idea of what you just said about your girls. That's really exciting. But
mate, don't get me wrong. I have a great meal and then I walk in to go like, let's tidy up. And the kitchen looks like fucking downtown Ramadi.
No doubt.
But yeah, so you said, girls, can we just clean it up as we
go? Well, they can follow me in the shop. That's not a bad deal.
No, you wait.
I've got it all to look forward to.
You wait. Number 7. If you were not doing what you are doing right now, what would have been option number 2?
Well, again, my unique circumstance, I kind of took this question as being mostly about like balancing that dream and the day job. And how most people in the arts have to do that. And that there's like that idea of making it. And versus paying the bills. So yeah, I think it sort of became like I'm doing it. I'm doing option 1 and 2.
Right.
Well,
that's it. I mean, this is what I've said to people. Like you do have your fingers proverbially in a lot of pies.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not just limiting yourself to one thing.
It was funny. So I had the year off with Olive, and at the end of 2020, we were pregnant again, and I knew I would have to go back to work. And I didn't really want to go straight back to barbering. I didn't hate barbering or anything, but I had just had so much fun rebuilding myself from that, kind of getting that balance right with who I wanted to be with art and stuff, that I didn't necessarily want to go backwards.
I remember seeing you during COVID so much, like
walking around,
getting a coffee, like going for walks. Fuck, you must have covered some more.
Man, I did. Personally, I lost 20 kilos.
Really?
But I walked about 5Ks a day.
Yeah, right.
Every day. Me and Olive, because Olive slept really well in the pram.
So that was just a ritual.
Yeah, so we'd walk from Corinda to Indro back, or to sort of Chelmer.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I wasn't quite ready to do barbering again. And so I actually went and worked at Bunnings for 6 months, which I didn't really like either.
Yeah, I remember that.
The strange thing about Bunnings was that I wanted to do it because I thought it would be like the most like chilled stoner job ever. And people were running around like they were at a fucking law firm or something. It was really the opposite of what I thought. And it also wasn't really my skill set in terms of like, basically what you're doing is like remembering long numbers and
Oh,
you know, like you kind of it's all that like pick and pack kind of those jobs, you know, and also like reprioritizing tasks constantly. Like you'd get given a job to do, and then you'd have to any customer that spoke to you, you'd have to go and do that.
and you're very free flowing.
Yeah.
You and structure probably don't have a great
Oh,
relationship.
no, absolutely. Well, it's taken, you know, like I got through the first probably 30 years with none. And I've really, you know, it's funny, people sometimes think I'm a bit over the top, like how driven I am now, but it's just, I just know what the other option is. Like, I just know, like,
Hang on,
man, we can chill, but I'll be pretty chill. I won't be doing it.
All right. One time you have backed yourself when everything was saying to just give up.
Again, I found that question hard to separate from, I can't remember what number question, but the other one about sort of when everyone thought you were crazy. I think it is about being an artist and calling yourself an artist and being brave enough to tell people you're an artist, because a lot of people don't get it. A lot of people just shut down.
And how much art do you have to be doing in order to then define yourself?
And do you have to be making money? How do you quantify what
this is what I say to the guys in the fight team. And initially I think it offended them because they'd say, you know, they're having fights, I'm a fighter. No, you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a guy that works wherever you work.
Yeah.
You train a shitload and you've jumped in the ring a couple of times.
Yeah.
You're not a fighter.
People I know there are people I know that aren't comfortable with the word artist, like they don't think they're there.
I always
say they're a painter, not an artist, or something like that.
Well, I always say I said, you know, if you are coming back from overseas and you have to write the entry card, when it says occupation, what do you write there?
I probably write Barber. But I think that's like, it's also the other one, the other classic is like you get in an Uber and they ask you what you do, you know?
Yeah.
Because what happened, you know, like, or anyone, someone at a barbecue goes, oh, what do you do? Or even when you're barbering, people say, what do you do in your spare time? You're at a crossroads. Like if you say I'm an artist, at least 70% of people in Australia will go, oh, what the fuck? Like, I don't know anything. Art's fucking crazy. Like, I don't know how to draw. Like, they'll just unload all this shit about how terrible art is or how they don't understand it or whatever. And like, you know, then you're like, what's your next move? Like, oh, well.
So do you like it? You read it for a bit and you know, what do you do in spare time? Oh, I play cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have gotten, that was part of like when I went back to barbering, and especially like, I guess I hit some little milestones where I've had a sense of achievement about art. And so I am better at telling people I'm an artist because I realize as well, often that stuff that people say is actually got a lot more to do with them. Like that's their insecurity about something that they don't know anything about.
How do you go in? I was listening to a podcast the other day about, you know, holding conversations. How do you go like talking to people? Because you don't want to give away, I guess, too much of you. Or you would have you'd have this down, like you'd have your open enders.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I'm better at it now. Like when I first started, I was sort of like trying to, and I think that's what fucked me up in the long term, was like I was sort of trying to deny everything I'd done until then. Like I'd gone from being this like fruity art guy, all this stuff, and really like larger than life, like Jesus Christ, like they just don't say no at art school. So I was just fucking crazy. And it was awesome. Like, no, I have no regrets. But then you go into something as tight as barbering. That was like I remember one day, like second week of barbering, I wore a blue shirt. And it was like, oh, do they make them for men? Fucking you know, like, because I wasn't wearing a black t-shirt. It's like, this is fucking literally the opposite, you know, like, so
this is my new life.
Yeah. And I think that just like, repression's too strong a word, but I definitely I worked out a new type of character that I had to play as a barber, and I did it fucking well. It wasn't hard to do, but I feel like I've gotten to a place now where I'm much more myself.
Just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, totally. And it's sort of like, it's much more comfortable. I think the way times are changing, and I actually think customers like it better because customers can come in. There was a type of customer 5 or 10 years ago, and you could tell that guy was so insecure that he turned his masculinity up to 110 and would say the most outrageous shit. But it was like, dude, no one cares. No one's.
We know, man. We know.
But we're not measuring our dicks or anything. Just chill out and we'll just have fun,
How do you go with because you would have a percentage of people that just are fucking mutes.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm cool with that. I think that's what I mean is the good thing about now.
You're not trying to force a conversation.
No, just tailor it to what they want. And you can tell.
Because we don't shut up.
No, yeah, we talk. We just have a full catch up. My really bad habit is say if yourself or a couple of other guys walk in, I'll just start talking to you, even if I'm doing it. I'll just be like, your time starts now. And this guy, I don't know what the fuck he was talking about, but I'm done now. Yeah, it's shocking. But you do get the guys that it's as important for someone who wants to talk or get something off their chest. You and I talk about, music and history and whatever, but some people have some shit to get off the chest. And that can be that's really valuable time to them. It's as valuable to someone who doesn't want to talk for that to be respected, I think. So it actually becomes within, and I remember being taught really early on, give them 2 questions. Give them 2 super fucking boring questions. What are you doing today? How about the Broncos, whatever. If they don't bite,
let it go.
Just let them go. And half of them will close their eyes and stuff, and that's great. And also, if they start to then go oh, we're not talking, let them dig themselves out if they want. They can start a conversation.
Yeah. That's that's always because I'll be honest. When I've crossed to the dark side and gone to another barber, please forgive me.
You're acting like I never noticed. I'm a very diplomatic guy.
There's some that I've been to that I just go, you and I just don't click.
Yeah, and I think I've gotten a lot better at because you can get really in your head about it's really easy to just project onto the customer and be like, this kind of hates me. This is terrible, but they're often not thinking about it.
No.
So they just got shit on.
It's got nothing to do with it. They're just, like I said, they're just enjoying that quiet time.
Yeah.
Number 9, 3 pieces of advice to people that are finding reasons to not back themselves, to instead back themselves.
I think I found this question really interesting because it brought me back to some specific points in my life where I was that guy that couldn't back himself and kind of was stuck. And I think the first thing that popped into my head was I wouldn't have wanted advice, at least in not in a soundbite, self-help kind of quote way. And I think what helped most was just having people around me and having kind of more less advice and more just sharing their stories or sharing really tangible ways of how they, because it can be really disheartening when you're I was pretty depressed, and it can be really hard when people are if you drink more water, you won't be anywhere near us. Get fucked, are you serious? You think if I have a drink of water right now, I'll just
that all I need
out of, it's it's not, and it's not that it's not true. Like those things are 100% true. You know, like if you eat well and exercise and don't drink and have water and all the rest of it, that's 100%. Of course, you'll be much more healthier in your body and in your mind. But that's not really what it's not going to help in that first moment. And at least for me, thinking back, I was kind of thinking the frame of the question being like talking to that person. Yeah, I don't know if I would have wanted to hear it, but I was probably at that breaking point, as we were talking about earlier, about I had probably squished too much of myself in the process of becoming a barber, and had probably got the controls a bit wrong in terms of like going from that full freebird art student to being a barber. And the points where they clashed, I kind of squished myself a bit, made myself smaller. And that was just becoming, like you can hold that if you have to get out of a shit situation, but it was just getting like, it wasn't going to be a long term.
No, you're in the boat where you kept putting your finger in another hole would appear.
Totally. So I was really depressed. I was going to work, but I was really shut down and really having trouble. I was drinking way too much and thought I was hiding it, but probably wasn't. And I think it took Olive being born that sort of gave me that clarity and sort of gave me that like who am I going to be to this kid? Like, am I going to do, like, because I could, you know, like I was on good money and whatever, and I was like, you know, like, I know, especially like in barbering, you talk to new dads constantly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I would say, a common, but not everyone, certainly not me, but a common reaction to becoming a dad is like, I got to provide for this fucking family. And they just go like double my hours and fucking, they run themselves ragged because they think, like if you are that type of kind of traditional masculine man and that's the men that you've had in your life, then that is your role. It's not just like some big doughy dumb man thing. It's like that's the role. That's the role that you have.
It's not just a provider, it's a protector. And you
might be less hands-on, but it's because you're providing in a different way.
And I mean, look, my father was like that when he was alive. Like his way of providing was he'd go overseas and work for 3 months at a time. When I was a toddler. Whereas I look back and I go, fuck, I really would have liked you to be home.
And I think the irony as well is that there's a huge feeling of sacrifice in that he would have fucking hated it too.
Yep.
You know, but he would have been proud. Like there's a way you can remodel those things that you probably didn't feel right at the time, but you can remodel and go, I'm really proud of how I supplied, 100%. You know, I looked after my family.
And we do what we think is right.
Yeah, of course.
And you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We'll go back however many years and go, that was fucking really dumb. But I mean, look, from his point of view, my mum has never paid a mortgage.
Yeah, there you go. And that's
bought the house outright. That's the same. Like we moved into that house in 1980. You know, so that stuff's that's a good thing. And that's providing. But there's all the time lost.
Exactly.
Providing.
Exactly.
So where's the trade-off?
And I think I had wanted to, as I said, you know, like we'd have a 15-year-old if I got my way. I wanted to be a dad. I really wanted to be a dad. I always knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. I don't know if I even really ever said it out loud really until we had a kid, but I knew that was something I really wanted to do, or at least something that I was aware would be hugely beneficial, whether or not. And then as I became a dad, I think I sort of started to think like,
Oh,
you can really only be a stay-at-home dad if your wife's like a barrister or,
yeah.
like you can't just fucking, you know what I mean? Like
Remember that
you have to be
80s?
a kept man.
I don't know if you remember that 80s movie with Michael Keaton, Mr. Mom.
Oh yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah,
that was what I had the
Totally,
impression,
totally.
but yeah, and look, our culture, dads don't stay at home.
No,
Dad's gonna work.
Yeah. Well, it sort of implies. I mean, it was a fucking interesting year of people being like, oh, okay, how come you're doing that?
Oh,
Like it
mate.
just, and people were curious. I don't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily negative, but it was just like, it was a constant kind of explaining myself about like, this is something that I've wanted to do. But it was also part of that process of rebuilding myself to be someone that I could sort of be proud of and that I wanted to be an example to the kids. And I didn't want to be, particularly how bleak things were. I couldn't see that. I couldn't see myself being like, oh, well, I was providing for, like, I mean, odds are I fucking would have topped myself in a couple of years anyway. So it was sort of like, I'm not, like what fucking legacy is that? Like
What do you leave? And I think this is the thing too, mate. Like, my dad's been passed away for 38 years now. I've learned as I've got older, he definitely had his faults.
Yeah, no doubt.
But he was my dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that we want. We want our kids to remember. I know that, well, I don't know if there is such a thing as a perfect father.
Yeah. No, well, and I think that's the really funny thing about becoming a dad, isn't it?
What the fuck is that? Like, what even is that?
Yeah, like me and Dad have had our differences. But there's no doubt in my mind that man loves me and I love him.
100%.
Like that's a piece of piss. That's a really easy question for me. But then what happens is like, there's still things that you change or you say like, oh, I don't want to be a dad like my dad was a dad. There's lots of different differences that you want to change. But fuck, like once you become a dad, you're like, it is actually pretty hard. It's you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
And there's no fucking, like, you can read all the parenting books you want. And as we said before, we're the same. We've got two very different kids. What that kid responds to,
totally.
That one will just look at you and go,
yeah,
good
luck.
Yeah. So it's like, there's no ops manual.
There's also a way that you can be a real hard marker on your parents, because you don't kind of, I assume, evolutionary or something. You don't think about them like people, really.
No.
Like they serve a whole other purpose to you as a child and as offspring. But once you become a parent, you realize like, man, they didn't know what they were doing. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like you and you're kind of in the best possible way. Like
the generational stuff.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and I think it's and
how
like
they were parented and all of it all swells up.
And we all know that one parent that has just, by our interpretation, just blown it or a dickhead, whatever. And you just look at them and go, you're doing something that I would never do. But then the other side to it is, well, I've never been in that situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know what I would do.
100%.
Like the freedom, I mean, like the trust that I have in my kids. Like I know there's other parents that would probably go like, that's not, like when the girls like, we're overseas and I'll trust the girls to go with one of the guys, to they're in Thailand, go to the shopping center without me. There's other parents that wouldn't let their fucking kid out of their sight.
Yeah.
I think you've just got to have trust in your kids.
Oh, definitely. And you got to do the work when your kids are my kids' age so that it's there, I guess.
It's building that trust in them too.
Yeah.
Lila came to us with something earlier this year, and I think it was interesting that both Helen and I just went, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that if I'd have gone to my mum with a similar situation, I just wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I'd have taken that shit to the grave.
Yeah, totally.
And
it, like we were talking yesterday, even when you're in the chair, about like having that trust and having that relationship, which is kind of generationally pretty new. It also means like there's less room they've got, I mean, I don't have teenage girls yet, but it's like there's less appetite for rebellion because you're kind of more friends. So they're sort of like, I need you to be okay with the fact that I'm not gonna just jump out the bedroom window like you did. I'm gonna tell you, hey, I'm gonna jump out the bedroom window, and you just have to go, cool, no worries, catch you later.
It's the thing, like, you know.
So it's like a kind of, you're not seeking forgiveness.
And yeah, what's the thing? Yeah, ask for
what is it?
Forgiveness first, whatever.
Forgiveness is better than
ask for forgiveness first, permission second, or whatever. But yeah, look, and I think that's the thing too. Like I always nicknamed Lila the game changer. But I will be honest and say that it didn't change straight away. It's probably only been in the last 10 years that I've really gone fucking wake up to yourself. You know.
Well, it's kind of different challenges at each stage, hey? Like, and it's different for mums and dads, and those roles are different.
I can't imagine this, like, you know, like I said about the stay-at-home dad, and even like you not working every single day.
Yeah. In
my old job, I would not, you know, if I was still doing my old job, well, I'd probably be on some awesome fucking medication for starters. But I would have nowhere near the relationship. A very good friend of mine who I used to work with has 3 daughters. The youngest one in particular, he really struggles with.
Yeah.
Because he's just always worked.
Yeah.
Hardly knows her.
Yeah. It's nuts, eh? But again, like, when that's put in front of him, it's trying to do the right thing. Like, you got to work. You know, I actually struggle now. Like, I'm not working enough, and it's because, like, I've kind of seen the other side of that now.
And like
in terms of, and Jess and I talked a lot when I first left barbering, and as we navigated through, like, we had 2 kids in less than 2 years. And through that whole process, it was like we can pick, everyone can pick between time and money.
Yeah.
It's up to you. And there's really good reasons to do either.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right now we need time. Right now, what I want as a dad, it's less conventional, but I want time, buckloads of time.
Yeah.
Both girls. And it means we've been fucking really poor for like 6 years. We've been fucked. But like,
they will remember those years,
exactly.
And they will look back with such fondness. Like the shit that I am able to do with my kids, because of the position I am in.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not loaded, but I'm able to do stuff in a space.
Yeah.
Because of what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I look back. So like, when both times Helen was pregnant, I was still working those stupid hours, the gigs on the weekend.
Yeah.
I'll get asked about Helen's pregnancy, and I'll go, I don't really remember much of it.
Yeah.
Because I was always always fucking working.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember how she was at this point or that point. You know?
It's funny how much those roles have changed as well, because like the old guys at work, or everyone at work, still kind of can't quite believe that, like, I'll leave work if the kids are sick or whatever. And I'm sure that in their mind it's like, well, where's the fucking mum?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, where's these kids' mother? That's her job.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are you? You should be here
100%,
making money, dude.
100%.
And
I still.
But truth be told, like, I'm still navigating back to working.
Yeah.
Like, I came back. It was a nightmare when I first started. I was like, he can't fucking tell us to do that. That's just ridiculous, like, none of this matters. Free yourself. That's real fucking hippie. But it was, it's really to get that work ethic back, because it was like that transition from, say, art school to working with Dicko was really similar. It was like I went from having 24 hours in the day to do nothing to being like 6 haircuts an hour every hour for 8 hours.
Yeah, it was back to that time.
Yeah.
And that was way off on a tangent, but that was really good.
Yeah,
it was really good.
Okay, good.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Thank God. A quote to live by.
A quote to live by. Well, I've over-delivered here. I've got 3.
Okay.
And the first one is that life is like a fart.
Okay.
And if you have to push, it's probably shit.
Oh.
Which I know is like...
that the world of Jack Rodgers, or can you credit that?
I heard that somewhere once upon a time, and I did think...
That sounds like an old pub rocker.
I definitely live by it in the sense that I know I was laughing, like Jess and I were talking about it last night, and I was saying it's probably the opposite type of advice that you'd be used to in this podcast or in this world, because it's about, like, it's so much of it is about pushing yourself. And it's sort of, I don't necessarily mean to be the opposite of that, but I would say that a lot of the best things in my life have come from following my nose. And when you hit a barrier, if you can't, it's sort of like if you start to kind of smell that it's not really going to work, it probably isn't. And the more that you need to compromise and change it and go, oh yeah, but if we get around this and we do it on Tuesday instead of Thursday, if it starts to be like that, it's kind of, for me, it's usually not going to work.
It's that, it's just that process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is something I've been talking to the guys in here a lot lately, choosing processes over goals.
Yeah. Or know when to push. Like it's good shit.
But we all need it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you're right. Like, and I think it is like, it's funny how you said that conversation, but, I think, yeah, there is a point, like I said, that you can not push enough. There's definitely a point you're pushing too much. There'll be people in here that will be training, like, you know, one guy, you know, even this morning, he trained last night, back here at 5 o'clock, training again. He's been doing that a bit lately, and I even pulled him aside last week and said, just be careful.
Yeah.
This is all fun now.
Yeah.
Until you find out. And your body will tell you by way of something going pop.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, like, and I think it's sort of, like it's part of that structure thing too. Like, I've had zero structure, and I've found a structure that works for me, and it, something that's going to get results that keep me going.
Yeah, man.
But without, like especially, I guess, something like art that's like, it's a marathon, and it's a bit like you made doing, like, going like a bull at a gate. It's like, man, you need to be able to do this shit for a really fucking long time.
It's the fucking long game, mate.
And it's also, I mean, there's also people, you know, say with something creative like art, like, there's some people who straight out of art school went into a gallery, went into another gallery, and making bank. But that can't be your plan.
No.
You know, that's the lotto. Like, that's awesome. And it's not that doesn't take hard work. That's like almost harder in a way, because you got to fucking get through your stage fright real quick.
Well, it's the patience of it too. Like, just take your time.
Totally.
What's 2 and 3?
2 and 3 are, you're not working on your masterpiece. You're working towards your masterpiece. And it takes, I think it's relevant to everything in life. Obviously, it's like art one, but it's it sort of takes the pressure off the moment, and more, same thing. It's a marathon or a sprint. Like, this one painting won't really, you know, it's not going to tell the whole story of your life. That's not what it's supposed to do.
Nothing.
It's part of a bigger,
not one thing is the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it really helps just like ground you in those moments where you're like, fuck, like, I got this show in Sydney and this painting's going to fucking be the really fucking important one. It's like, not when you look back 20 years ago.
And it's funny, isn't it? Like, you look back and like you have those moments where you think, oh, this is it. This is going to be the big one. It's generally not the case.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your intuition can be really wrong on that, for sure.
Like I'll write something and go, oh, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one fucking liked it.
Totally.
Whereas you write something off the cuff, you go, God, that's awesome. But
Yeah.
it's funny how
you can even get that with art within 24 hours. Like you think you fucking nailed it, you go up, go to bed.
you fucking do these
Come back
ones
the next morning.
Oh,
Yeah.
and you go, people go,
Yeah.
that thing,
Yeah.
that's shit.
Yeah.
You know,
Or the one that's been like faced against the wall that's giving you shit.
the last 10
I
years.
gotta have it. People love it, you know? Yeah.
You want
it's
that?
crazy, man.
You
Yeah,
that?
yeah, you can have it.
Number 3.
Number 3. Now I'm gonna look. I did have it. I can't remember. Gotta get rid of this fucking password thing. Oh yeah, everything is temporary. When my cousin had the tattoo shop, he had a shirt that said, "Everything is temporary, get tattooed." Because everyone's with tattooing, people are obsessed with permanence. Like, oh, you know, that's on you forever, and people get really in their head. But it's like, man, we're only here for 80 years.
That's
like,
right.
It's not that long.
That was one I was going to ask. That's a tangent. First tattoo.
First tattoo, I got my chest done by Tim Dunn
Mm-hmm.
when I was 18.
Was it always something in your head?
Yeah, yeah, big time.
And it just became back to that addictive personality.
Yeah, that was And I mean, especially
what's the
I'm really
most
lucky.
recent tattoo you got?
I got raw power
Mm-hmm.
on my chest, and I got what else? Did I got something else that day as well. I can't remember now. I got like a Ned Kelly. I wanted like a real classic like bikie. So it's like a Ned Kelly coming out of smoking guns.
Because Jess has tattoos too.
Yeah, so they're all by my cousin as well.
She
was clean skinned when we met. It must be contagious.
It's all your fault. You put an interesting picture up on your Instagram the other day.
Yes.
Of your of Olive doing some DIY.
Yeah,
doing a DIY
she
sleeve.
had done a whole sleeve in whiteboard marker on her arm.
This is where we get to the parenting thing because my like Lila's talking about you know, already wanting to get a tattoo and all the rest. I think we spoke about it yesterday. Yeah. It's hard to have an opinion on that when you're covered in tattoos.
I don't have a sand on. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what's your initial reaction when your daughter says, "I want to get tattoos"?
It's funny, like I think it will less be about getting tattoos and more about it'll just be different. Like it'll be a different style, or it'll be something that I think's shit, or it'll, you know, like it won't be. I couldn't give a shit if she gets tattoos, obviously, but it's I know, like, because it's just like tattooing.
It's going
naturally is anti-authority and rebellious and stuff, so it's sort of like
it is
the act of doing it,
but it's
part of.
It's much less now. Like kids that would get tattoos now, 20 years ago would never have got one.
No, for sure. But I think it's also like there's just varying degrees of like rebellion in general is safer now than it was. And it was safer when I did it than it was for my cousin. And you know, like I think it's just shit's getting more boring and you gotta get a face tat to even register with people that you have tats.
I know,
like,
right?
People don't think of me. I mean, I know I'm very heavily tattooed, but people, like when I first started getting tattooed, people would like look at you in the street and shit, but it's not. People don't care now.
It's very normal now.
Yeah.
When you back to the temporary thing, just to finish up.
Yes.
You have seemed to you seem to have this thing like there's definitely been stages in your life. You're not putting all your eggs ever in one basket.
No, that's true. And it's funny.
I wouldn't call it a plan. You have a plan B, but it's just like you said, it's a feel.
Yeah.
This feels good now.
Totally.
I'll do this.
Yeah.
I'll see how long this lasts.
Yeah.
Like if that stay at home thing had turned into 5 years, it would have just been, oh, okay.
Yeah, cool. Very much so.
Mm.
And I think that's a better way. It's kind of like, you know, some people think that success or happiness comes from excellence
Mm.
or having a really high bar.
Mm.
And I think it actually comes from having a really low bar, like not in a defeatist way, but just in a, you have to be able to let yourself off the hook a little bit, and you have to weigh up whether or not you're actually enjoying yourself.
Someone said to me many, many years ago, the lower you set your expectations, the less there is to get disappointed
Yeah,
about.
absolutely. And I think it's, especially these days, I think it's really valuable way to look at the world because everything moves so fast.
Look how much it's evolved in the last 4 years. Like,
Yeah.
like all the lessons we learnt from COVID, we've essentially kind of forgotten.
Yeah, totally.
We're kind of back to where we were.
Yeah.
So do we need not that I fucking,
yeah,
but do we need
another
one to remind us?
Yeah.
Hey,
Mm. Well, I think it's also, it just, on a personal level, I think it's really important to set goals and have like long-term goals and short-term goals.
Yeah.
But you need to have like your expectations at an appropriate level so that you can continue to move forward and progress. And I think something like COVID, it didn't necessarily do that. It just took all the goals off people. So it was a good leveler, but it wasn't necessarily like a long-term solution. Well, so people have just like put that structure back in.
Well, look at you, like, said you work from home, you're the stay-at-home guy, you're walking Olive. You didn't go, oh, I'm going to walk my kid and I'm going to lose 20 kilos.
No, yeah. It certainly wasn't on purpose.
This was just like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah. But I had sort of 3 to 4 years worth of like deep, dark, depressed alcohol fat that I was like, well, I'm not deep, dark, or depressed anymore. So I should, I should act accordingly kind of thing.
Get outside.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's good.
Got more vitamin D in that couple of years than, like, ironically, everyone was apparently inside. I got sunburned the whole time.
You were doing your thing.
That's right.
Look, mate, it's been awesome to chat to you.
Yeah, likewise.
It's been a really good chat.
Yeah.
If people want to check out your stuff, how do they find you?
Have a look for me on Instagram, at Jack Rodgers Artist, as you said, with a D, RODGERS Artist. I've got a painting hanging in the Brisbane Portrait Prize at the moment, which is in the State Library in South Brisbane.
Beautiful.
And yeah, just keep an eye on the Insta, and there's always shows coming up and prizes I'm in and stuff like that. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled. And
you're still cutting stuff around the traps. That's and if people want to find out where he does the cuts, just message me.
Yeah, talk to the man.
I'll hook you up. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate. Amazing.
Guys, we'll have more coming up soon. We've got other guests booked. Go back on our previous episodes, like, subscribe, share. It's been fun, man.
It's been great. Thank you, man.
We'll see everybody later. Check us out.